Good morning, Rick.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Well, we got up this morning early because the dog was making a noise, and the most torrential rainstorm that I've seen in a long while just blasted everything. So I stood there watching for a minute while all of the greenhouse was wobbling and all of the flowers were blowing around. And then I looked out after a little bit, and it had settled. It had gone. It was really strange. So I'm sat in my room where I do this broadcast from. We're looking out there, and there's bright sunshine. So I thought, with there being bright sunshine, what's at the end of a storm? There's going to be a rainbow. So I haven't got any ego, but the waistcoat has this morning. So we've gone for the rainbow. We've gone for the bright pink. We've gone for the vibrancy and lifting the energies around me, just because, like we were just talking about off camera, I'm a little bit, I'm feeling a little bit beat up, but we're going to work through this. So all's good. I'm upright and breathing like you. I've got a brew and I'm ready to go.
And good morning, TD. And oh, Gemma's on. Hi, Gemma. Gemma's in too. I haven't seen Gemma in a bit.
Hi, guys.
So our top and Grumpy's here. Good morning.
Greatest comment already, Anna. Good morning. Is there a volume control on that? No. And this isn't the noisiest one. I will do you a deal, Grumpy. I will put the for one of the next ones, I will put the loudest one that I've got, and then I'll blast you out of your chair in the morning energetically.
Grumpy had a fun weekend. They were doing karaoke at his house this weekend. He sent me a little clip of it. It looked like a blast.
Oh, brilliant.
So according to our curriculum for this 6-week jump that we're doing together, today was supposed to be healing and self-care, and you're in pain. You just seem to keep lining up with our topics. So, we can talk a little bit about that. One of the things when I was turned on to this whole literary world of esoterica, one of my mentors turned me on to Louise Hay. And Louise Hay, she unfortunately just passed away a few years ago, but she was a 2-time survivor of cancer. And she's kind of the old school original affirmations, as a commercial kind of pumped out type of literature and philosophy. So she's a firm believer that our words can either hurt or heal us. Our thoughts can either hurt or heal us, and that different parts of the body will respond to negative thinking in certain ways. And so you were explaining to me, because Mrs. P is, you said she's a Reiki healer, correct?
Reflexologist.
Reflexologist.
She is Reiki trained as well, but yes, she is a reflexologist.
So different parts of our body are going to react and misbehave when they need a little bit of attention because of the thought patterns that we have. And I always thought that this was a very interesting kind of thinking. The one thing I remember with Louise Hay is that resentment will cause cancers. So if you're resentful and you're letting something eat away at you, you're going to result in cancer, which is kind of interesting because OJ Simpson just died of cancer. But so do you want to talk about your pain? Because I'm going to tell you about the pain that just came up for me recently. And I don't know if it's from cleaning or not, but do you want to talk about specifically or not, in general terms, what your pain is?
Yeah, lower back. And I'm going to have my foot in both camps here, because when I started out with all of this, actually connecting with spirit, all of it was just like this wide open. When I was asked, what did I think about all of this? I went, well, I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody because everybody's got their own beliefs. I said, but it's not really happened to me where I can sort of say, oh, yeah, I understand 100% what you're talking about. So I spoke about being an open-minded skeptic. So I wasn't going to sort of poo-poo anything. I was fascinated. And that, even now that I'm 6 years, 7 years further on down the line as a professional reader, I'm still in that mind state. So when this was first introduced to me, that there is a mind-body link, I'm kind of like, doesn't quite sit with me energetically. And yet life, as it happens to do, when you start to notice the synchronicities around your life, starts to show you recurrent patterns. So I've got an injury like that. I don't know if you can see how my arm is like that. And that is, I can't bend it. I've not injured it that I'm aware of. But when I left the prison service, I went to do rendering and plastering. And it's very, very heavy on the hands, especially if you've not done it before. So I'm fairly strong physically, usually. But when I went there, this was a new skill, and I was so underconfident. I was so worried. So you're putting a lot of stress and strain through your body physically. And the mind wants to send out natural painkillers, and it wants to send out help. That it doesn't want you in that stress state, because you start to malfunction. If you're malfunctioning, you make less rational decisions. So I went through all of that, and it provided me with so that I could get through it, my natural painkillers, because my personal dealings with pain, I don't take tablets because I want to experience the pain. Because in my experience, and this is just me, this is not advocacy for any particular thing, you handle it your own way, that pain is a message. And once the message is read, then it will go away if you agree with the lesson that it's learned. If you've still got things going on and around it that you haven't resolved, you will still get the pain. So I went plastering and formed my own business. Now, there was a real fear there, because I'd not got the experience and I'd kind of flung myself into it like I tend to do with things. My fear was in my back. It was lodged in there because the spine, for me, if you think about it literally, supports. It supports and it holds up the whole body frame. And for me, when I spoke to my wife about it, who knows a lot more about this, with reflexology, your foot is a map of all of the areas of your body. So the idea behind reflexology is freeing up those channels so that it all flows through you. So essentially your energy's flowing through you, out, round, and in the system, and then gone out any waste products. My back has been a source of problem since I was about 16. Now, physically, what was going on at that particular time, I was finding myself. I'd come out of the army, which was my lifelong dream, and then I was into something where I didn't know whether it would work or not. It was another passing flight of fantasy thing, and I just went, I'm now going to do this. And I injured my back. Now, that back injury, I was lucky to get away with that back injury, because what it wasn't a poor technique. It was just that when you're developing at that age, lifting that heavy, you should be more mindful. And I wasn't, because I'd not had the experience with it. So I just lifted until my back sort of went no. So as a result of that, over the years, there's been problems. Now, my mind associates now with things that if there's fear, or there's something there where I'm being challenged, my back will most likely play up. So I've got round that now by sort of treating my back like a friend rather than the early warning system. Right. So if I look at something, I know I'm capable of lifting big amounts of weight even at my age, but I choose not to, because if my back goes into a fear spasm or anything like that, or I'm feeling uncomfortable or anything along those lines, then I tend to shut down, and then that will cost me like lots of time while I go into sort of counselling with myself and go, right, what's the problem? So the thing with the arm came in, and I didn't make the connection. Should have done, because I've been living with this back trouble since I was 15. I'm nearly 52 now. Came out of the college, having passed that, straight into a business that I wasn't experienced enough at. Didn't really know what I was doing. I came out of 12 years in the prison service, and my body went, we need to protect you. Yeah. I'm left-handed, so we need to send out that and make sure you're as fit as you can, but you're fearful. So my back starts playing up, because my support structure's not there. So in my mind, I'm kind of like sabotaging myself because I'm telling myself I'm not good enough to achieve this. This is my troweling hand. If I can't extend my troweling hand for rendering, I can't get my arm up and down. So your body is, unless you get to it, is sending you messages to protect you. So sometimes there's a fascinating therapy that I want to get more into, but I haven't had the experience of it yet, called parts therapy. So you go into a state of meditation and or whatever it is that you call it as, sitting in your own power, and you go into a meeting and you call in all parts of your psyche. So there'll be part of you that is protecting you in his role, his or her role, to save you from this pain. But like with everything, we still need to function. So you have to negotiate with that part of you that's sending out the pain message. So whenever I get back pain, it's levels. Yesterday was as severe as it's been in a long time because all I did was bend down to pick up some the dog waste, and I sort of walked myself up my thighs there to stand up again, and I couldn't physically do it. So you get yourself upright and you get yourself back home again. And I sat there and I'm thinking about it, and Mrs. P says, "What's going on? What's the problem?" And then I started to recount conversations. Right, I'm nearly at the 2-year point now where I've been in this business self-employed, and that is my only source of income. What have I been thinking about just recently? So we've talked about this quite a lot, expansion with things, right? We've talked about, we had a business meeting last night that was very it was quite high paced and there was a lot of energy coming in. Now my body's gone, right, we're going out of comfort zone there. The back and the spine is about money and finances and not feeling supported in some way or another. So for me, it's linked into past memories where I haven't felt supported. It's triggered that energy. And now I've gone, oh, I'm feeling uncomfortable. I need to step back. So your body agrees with you and just goes, right, we'll give you a reason not to do something. So like today, I'm not going to be able to go out and lay paving slabs, which is what I wanted to do over this weekend. I'm not going to be able to do any running or any weights at the moment. By my unconscious mind is protecting me. So it's very important that with your energy that you start to realize that when we're talking about self-care and looking after yourself and your welfare and that, as well as it being physical, there's a lot of it that's mental. So you have to be kind to yourself in order for your inner being and your inner psyche to respond. And this is where I feel a hypocrite talking to you this morning, because I am one of the worst at doing it. And this is why I'm sat in front of you in pain. So like my old granddad and that sort of thing used to say, do as I do, not as I, sorry, do as I say, not as I do. So that's what I'm having to come at you with this morning. And I'm expecting from the universe at large, flack, right? Because I was coming home the other night, I'm sat there after doing this rather intense house party with people's energies, and I was in a lot of pain driving home. And I got a speech rehearsed because I'd run late that I was going to say to Mrs. P, I'm ever so sorry about that, but you know what I'm like when I get involved with things. And this message come through loud and clear. And I want to pass this on for all you guys listening, right? An apology is not an apology unless there's changed behavior. Right. So I took that one on the chin. It was a little bit of a right. So I can sit here and tell you that I'm going to do all this, and this, but essentially what I'm going to do today is pretty much rest, because my body needs to learn as well that it doesn't need to protect me. I will shout out if there's any reasons. But like yesterday, I lifted something too heavy. I should have recognized that I was low level energy and I was offered the help that to lift this thing, but the caveman in me kicks in and goes, no, I'll be fine. And now this morning I'm paying even a higher price. So
yeah, I have that cave woman too, who's like, yeah, you can do it. Don't worry about it. Move that wood pile. Doesn't matter. Everyone else is doing their own thing. You move the wood pile. I did that a few weeks ago, and was very angry at the end of it. But no, it's one of the things that I think is really interesting is that we see so many people with back pain, And I could go into like a whole spiel, a whole like Joe Rogan spiel about how, aliens seeded the planet and we're supposed to be at another, uh, uh, gravitational pull, and that's why our backs hurt. Like there's a whole theory on that. But, I think the more we go on, the busier we are, the more responsibilities we take on, the more, and I hate to say noise and static because it's not noise and static. The world has, life has speeded up, and we just have a lot of stuff on our plate. I know for me, I have 4 emails. I have 4 emails. Like the last thing I want is another email, but I have 4 emails and I really do need them. I have one for my business. I have one for my personal stuff. I have one for shopping. I have one for my professional stuff. I just don't want those streams to cross. So I think when we have all of that, and it's necessary noise. I think when we have all that necessary noise, what winds up happening is we do feel like we have the weight of the world on our shoulders, and it starts to affect our back, and it starts to affect the way that we hold ourselves up. With I know we have the hutch on here. A weak back is usually weak abs. So are we gutless in some situations? Are our guts not strong enough? You can really kind of peel away the layers and get to the middle of that onion or the middle of the cake, whatever kind of layers you want to talk about. But for me, over the last few, now my back hurts too, and we were talking offline. I was a gymnast. I was a cheerleader. I was a gymnast. I was a competitive swimmer. I was a competitive diver. Swimming and diving is much easier on the body, but no one told me that being a gymnast, being and floor and uneven bars were my best events. No one told me how beat up I was going to feel at this point in my life. Nobody warned me about that. Everyone was like, "Oh, it's so great. You're in such great shape." And then I was also a runner, but I did run on the beach, so it was a little bit less impactful than running on regular pavement or track. At this age, I can't really run on pavement or track because it just is. My hips will hurt. I'll have a lot of structural issues. But um, you know, uh, over the last couple of weeks, my shoulders have started to act up. I do have bursitis in both shoulders, and it's from the TV show The Odd Couple. There's this exchange that Oscar and Felix have, and he's crying, and he uses the excuse that he has bursitis in his shoulders. So every time I go, "Oh, I have shoulders," and I have bursitis, Greg goes, "Oh, are you crying? Is it from crying?" I'm like, "No, it's not from crying." But I think the shoulder pain is from reaching out not effectively for different things. We talked about Louise Hay a little bit. Louise Hay says when you have issues with fingers, like if you're bumping your fingers into things and you're having trouble grasping things, you're energetically having trouble grasping things. If you're dropping things, you're energetically not hanging on to them, not making them yours. So I think that what's going on with my shoulders is this energetic grasping that I'm doing, and when it comes to good stuff like this and like the psychic news universe, which there's going to be some updates. We're going to talk about that before the end. Um, I'm very greedy with good things. Like I just really want to make a big boom and have everybody see it, and I want to get things done very quickly. I want to create my goal plan and just kind of get it done. And sometimes if there's a lesson that the universe wants me to have this lifetime, it's slow the hell down. They really want me to slow the hell down. So I will be meditating today on just kind of slowing down this pain in my shoulders. And I, like you, I work through it. I was scrubbing we have the glass shower doors, and I was scrubbing them with a magic eraser the other day. I'm like, I don't care that my shoulder hurts. I'm going to pay for it later, but the wall's going to look great. So the glass is going to look fantastic. So, I being aware of where your pain is coming from, being aware of what an ailment is coming from is the first step to healing yourself. And I do believe that we can heal ourselves. I do believe that we can make corrections. So, a great example of this, and it did take me a while to do it, but I had a, everyone knows I had a head injury, and I think it was 1995, and I had pretty significant bleeding on the brain. The doctor, when he looked at me, he was like, "Oh, when were you in the car accident?" I was like, "I wasn't in a car accident. I just had a fall." And he was like, "Yeah, you're lucky. You should have died from this," was basically what he told me. And I was only knocked out for that long, and went home and took something to sleep and went to sleep. And when I told him that, he was really horrified. He goes, "You really should have died that night." So I questioned why the universe kept me around, but I was having an average of 8 grand mal seizures a day at one point. It was very significant. It was life changing. It is a huge contributing factor to why my first marriage broke up because I just wasn't functional. When I came, my father brought me back to the East Coast and was like, "Hey, let's get you to a good doctor here in New York." And the first thing they said to me was, "We're going to put you back on the phenobarb cocktail." And I said, "I'll put a gun in my mouth." I actually said that to him. And he goes, "I have to write that in your file." I'm like, "Write it down, highlight it, underline it. I'm not taking the phenobarbital ever again." It was a handful of pills that basically just made me drool. And I just was not, again, not functional and still having seizures. So I did a little bit of research. I looked into some homeopathy, and I just manifested to not have these seizures anymore. Now, to be sure, head injuries can go either way. When you have a head injury, you can all of a sudden stop having symptoms. You can all of a sudden start having symptoms again. And I'm not suggesting anyone that has, any kind of seizure disorder do something like this. But I started taking valerian root. I did some research and saw they were treating seizures proactively in Europe with valerian root, and so I started doing that. And within 2 months, I was having 0 seizures. Was it partially the time that I was allowed to heal and the actual sheer will of wanting to have a life again? I think that was really my biggest factor there. I think, had I not been so drugged with the pharmaceuticals that were trying to stop the seizures, that maybe I could have manifested that a little bit better. But the Western treatment for my condition was basically, I was basically either asleep, drooling, or kind of staggering around. So, did I do the inner work that needed to be done? Probably not. Did I manifest that I needed to get back to life so I could start making money again, so that I could start building my life again? Absolutely. I think that is, one situation where you can kind of, did I self heal? Yes, I did. I self healed the the practical part of it. Did I do the energetic part of it? No, but I probably will put that on my to do list for the next 6 months. I mean, I haven't had a seizure in almost 25 years. So, that's an amazing thing. And I'm glad it's in my past. And that's probably why I don't want to go back to it. But, things like that, people that have migraines, people that have diabetes is one. That is, and I think I remember Louise Hay saying that, those at the pancreas, when we start having issues with the pancreas, like diabetes, pancreatic cancers, those kinds of things. It's about not feeling satisfied, not responding to those satiation triggers, and that doesn't mean, like, when you're eating or something like that. It means for all things. You can overdose on, feeling good. You can overdose on adrenaline, all of those things, and that can have an impact. So, there always is a correlation. I'm not an expert on the correlation between the mind and body connection, but I do know the things that have affected me. And Rick and I, we'll repost this later and put some resources into the description of it so that everybody can, or we'll do a community post and put some resources in there. Me personally, I love Louise Hay. I think she was really, really onto something special. So Rick, I saw you look off. Is somebody talking to you? Are you?
No. I tell
Oh,
you
I
what,
think it was Spirit tapping you on the
I was
shoulder.
actually looking for. There was. I'm not sure because this is not like a put together backdrop. This is a room. So
It
to my
looks great.
right, to my right is a bookshelf with all of the spiritual books that we've got in here. And I do know, and I was just looking if it was grabbable, but I can't remember the title of it, that talks about, and it was when you said about the links in with Louise Hay things, that I was going, oh, right, that rings a bell somewhere. And I'm not quite sure which one it is, but it's got all of the links to like pancreas and things like that. So you mentioned about your shoulders. Now, shoulders, what they represent to me are burdens. What weight of emotion are you carrying? So a lot of people that come to me, they'll be sort of like unbalanced energetically, and I literally see it. I don't know if you can remember or if it's come across there, the Mr. Men books. So the Mr. Men books were like these little characters that were written by a guy called Roger Hargreaves, and they were part of my school, part of my growing up, and loved them. Very, very simple stories. There was Mr. Greedy, Mr. Messy, Mr. Noisy, all of these sort of
Oh, and they were like a little circle.
yeah. So
Okay, yeah.
Mr. Messy is represented by this pink sort of ball of, it looks like a ball of thread. So when a client comes to me and they're carrying energy somewhere, I literally see that, but in black. So like these squirrels, and you're just going, right. So there's a sense with you that you've worked your way through all of that, or whatever the difficulties were, that's causing you that slight imbalance, because people sit, and that often, their body language often tells you what they're going through, whether they realize it or not. Then you look into the eyes, and the eyes are the window to the soul. So there's a lot of information that comes from a person when you sit with them of whereabouts they are energetically. And then, of course, spirit do their little bit. But I was looking at this particular person and I went, right, you, over these last couple of years, that you've done quite a lot of the shadow work, you've done a lot of the inner child work, but for some strange reason in your mind, you still don't feel good enough to let all of that crap go. So sometimes it's giving yourself permission to, when you've gone through all of that, I'm just like, you know, the principles of Reiki is that you give yourself a brush, you know, you get rid of the energy. I'm not saying that this is the be all and end all to everything, but it does help a lot of people that once you've gone through the work, don't go through it again. Don't look back. Could you have done it in a different way or done it any better? If you've come to a conclusion with it, remove it from your shoulders. Just to bring up a point as well, where you mentioned there about Louise Hay, my dad, from the age of 42, I think it was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And there was a series of things that happened, a series of synchronicities with him, that he didn't end up in a wheelchair because the person that diagnosed him at the time gave him gold injections, which turned out to be a joint weakener in the end. But what happened with him is he avoided the wheelchair. Anyway, he always tells us stories of what medications he was on and things like this, but he didn't end up 100% crippled. Obviously, his balance and that was affected, but he didn't end up, because it was a series of timings. I decided to do some research because, and this is where I want to be very, very clear about this, guys, for anybody who's watching. I am not medically qualified or advocating anything. This is my personal experience and what I've looked at. So I looked at my dad, and my dad, a difficult man, without going into too many personal details, a very difficult man, very set in his ways, left the army 40 something years ago and came home and never left the army, you know, right up until his passing. He was army through and through, even though he'd left it 40 odd years ago. Started looking at rheumatoid arthritis and what rheumatoid arthritis was all about. Well, it's part of it's a blood thing. I don't know what the exact connotations of it are, but I was looking at the mind-body link, and it turns out that it is a link to trauma and grief. right? So I read into it a little bit more, and my dad lost his mum at 16 years of age from cancer. And when you start to read into what the triggers are, when you repress all of your emotions and things like this was one of the sort of side effects that could happen in future life. So I went to my dad and I said to him, you know, I've done this research and I've done this, that, and the other. And he totally closed me down, because it's where you are in that mindset and you must do what's right for you. But the big pharmaceuticals are not big pharmaceuticals for no good reason. Do you know what I mean? You follow where the money goes and you'll get some big answers there. But there are other reasons. This is why I choose to do my pain journey, if you like, in a different way. I don't do painkillers unless I'm at that point where I physically can't cope. You know, if I've got to do something, but it's very rare these days that I'll take painkillers. I always look first now, rather than going, oh, I'll go take a paracetamol or a painkiller or whatever. I'm going to go, right, what's going on around me? My wife's going through some treatment at the moment for a neck issue. And the first thing that they say is, what was going on around you at the time that this first started up? Not what triggered it, but what was you going through emotionally? What was you dealing with? So in my dad's case, it was, say, losing his mum to cancer. And I mean, it was in the days, because he was 75 when he went, it was in the days that it was treated with sort of things there, and it left horrific scars and open wounds and things like this with all of the chemotherapy. I mean, it's developed a lot further on down the line, but he was still in that past moment all of the time, reliving it over and over and over again. So his body was in a state of pain and trauma all of the time. PTSD is another link there, that he'd got, you know, he'd been in some horrific situations in the army and things like that, where he dealt with certain things. And the body remembers all of that. So when you get a trigger, you could be revisiting a trauma if you've not took the steps. I mean, I love your analogy about the onion, because this, for me, is like where you can get into that thought therapy with people and just go, right, so why did you say that? Why did you think that? This is not all about counselling and psychology, because, as I say, I'm not qualified. But your words towards others and towards yourself can have a dramatic effect on your mindset and on your body. So everybody knows how to do, you go into a gym, it's interesting, we've got Fitness Hutch on, that when you go into a gym, you're not going to go in there first day and start chucking big weights around without asking somebody, right, what is the benefits of this? What am I going to do this? Yeah, we'll get up every single day and then we'll attempt these brand new things. And then if we don't quite meet the mark that we've set ourselves, I'm not good enough, or, well, that's always been my luck. Well, the mind remembers all of that.
Yes.
So the first time that you come up with something that's similar, your body recounts the last experience that was as close to that feeling as you can, and you press play on it again. So life is all about patterns and repeat patterns. So if your first experience of something was your mum, your dad, your caregiver saying to you, well, don't expect much, or they've even put you in a place of, God, you don't want to go anywhere near that, that's not our sort of people's things, anything fear-based, well, that's a program that's gone into the subconscious mind. So the next time you come up to something, and it could be, and this, I'm still experiencing this, there's certain things now where I go into it and instantly, even though there's nothing surrounding me that's causing me any problems, no worries, no anxieties or anything like that, I instantly regress to a child. There's certain things that trigger me and I'm going, I can't do it. 52-year-old me stood there in the background laughing, because I'm going, right, this is a load of shit. But that inner child, or that thing that's being triggered by that lack of care towards me at the beginning, it has become my go-to command. So there's certain things that now, even now, where I have to go, right, how old am I? Is it my reality that there's a problem with this in my mindset? Right. Who's writing on your walls? And this is classic NLP for anybody who's aware of what I'm using there. who's written on your walls. So at times when you get into that state of fight or flight and worry, just slow the things down. Just slow stuff down to a point where you can just gather all information. It's like the information gatherer. Take it all down and then have a look. Is it in this reality here and now, or is it you just for that moment being flashed off to when you faced up to something that you felt overwhelmed by? Because we were talking last night, and I'm not giving too much until we open it up later. But when we were talking last night, right, I am a big personality. Right, I am a big gob, and I openly admit that that's what I'm like. So when I come into things, if I'm feeling uncomfortable with anything and I feel like I'm not contributing, that's not me at 52. That's how I've got along since the age of about 10 years of age. So the room we went into last night, with the Zoom room, right, you've got equal big personalities. Right, there was all, and it was like if you're an empath and went into that room, you'd have gone because it was just whoosh. And I sat there. Was a 52 in that meeting? No, I wasn't. Right, I was going back to a very young age. Number one, because I was in pain with my back, so I was focusing my energy on like not fidgeting and not jumping around. Also focusing on the fact that I was struggling for concentration, and also focusing on the fact that I felt like I'd got nothing to contribute, right? We was all offered equal opportunities, but in my mind, if you imagine that when you say something when you're younger and you met with, be quiet, go sit in the corner, go do something like that, and then you're triggered by an environment there, what age are you? So in that room last night, I wasn't nearly 52 years of age. I was regressing bit by bit because the person who's normally in control of everything, because how it was likened to me the other week, and I thought, what a lovely description. I've been looking for this description. She says, I don't think you're mad. I don't think you're weird or anything like that. She says, but I think you've got like a carousel thing going on in your head. That when the carousel spins, depending on the circumstances, depending on who you're around, is what role you play. So the picture pops up and then somebody steps in. So while I was off fighting against all of my different things last night, the child in me stepped in, and it's like putting a child in a car and saying, right, drive it without any knowledge whatsoever. But they do the best, but it's going to bump and it's going to bounce off things. So it's getting in touch with that inner being sometimes and just going, right, hang on, I'm in charge here for a minute. Right, what are you saying? What are you saying? What are you saying? And it's also the same with the body's energy as well. I'm not saying that everything is linked to, because we've got to have pain sometimes, I think, just to feel that we're alive, to know that we're still upright and going. But the majority of the time for me, what I found over these last few years is there's usually a reason, and it's either current, which, as I say about the back, is about finance and not being supported in some way or another, even if it's subconscious, but it might well be programming that needs looking at. So you think about your computer, that every now and again it needs a defrag because there's information, there's cookies and stuff that's gone in there that are no longer relevant. So we have to have a restart and a reset. So this is why, with what I'm bringing out here for you, is I sit and listen and I pick out things from the programming and I'll say, right, is this relevant now in 2024, or is this what younger you's bringing in? So there's a big element there, as well as the physical aspect of things, that I would say a big percentage of it is about mind state and what you're saying to yourself, because that generates the energy. And if you think about the energy that you're generating, that then fuels the response. So this is a plea for you that you must treat yourself better.
And I think that those repeating thoughts, those things that people say to us when we're children, because when we're children, our world is very small. So the things that are said to us are much more impactful and stay with us for much longer. I know I'm a fiction writer, and my mother would say to me all the time, "You'll never make any money writing. You'll never make any money writing." And it became the mantra of my life, and that's why God put me on this planet. Like, I am supposed to be a writer. I'm supposed to be a writer of many, many things, and I do that every day. At my corporate job, I was the email writer. I had all these templates for everyone. I would pass them out like candy. Here, these are really great things. This is before AI. So whenever I do sit down to write, and to be sure, I've never published any of my fiction writing for money to date. Despite having written 7 novels,
Wow.
despite having a stack of short stories, I have never published any of them because I was basically programmed that I wasn't going to make any money. So I'm going to fix that. That's one of my goals this year, one of my energetic goals. But I real quick want to address Frequent Hughes. I put her comment up here. Um, so there's a little bit more. So Frequent Hughes, I'm gonna let you know this is not my particular forte. Um, she does want to know here why she was open to this. Just anyone who wants to know, the an Ashtorath is a demon that can kind of attach to someone. So it's not my particular forte of handling that kind of let's call it an infestation. So I'm sorry that I can't give you better advice than that, but I would do a couple of things. I mean, if you are religious or have any kind of foundation in an organized religion, you can talk to a leader over there. This is just kind of out of my wheelhouse. So as much as I would love to help you. I mean, I do mediumship. I do go to haunted houses, those kinds of things, with my friends in the New Jersey Paranormal Association. But as far as handling any possessions or anything like that, it's something that I have not jumped into. So I would start there. I would also reach out to some of the paranormal education organizations. That's always a good place to start. So, we have here in New Jersey, we have a fairly large one that's a no-cost organization. They run courses that you can. They're very inexpensive. They're like a $5, $10 donation or something like that. You can reach out to them and see if they have anyone. There's plenty of people that specialize in this kind of treatment, but it's not something that I'm involved in, and I don't think Rick is involved in it either. So I'm sorry that we're not more help to you, but that is a vocation all in its own. And anyone that does, even though it does fall under the umbrella of energetic healing, anyone that does those kinds of exorcisms and such, they're incredibly taxing. We've all seen the movies, we all know how incredibly taxing it is, but because you are interfacing with a very, very large presence that has a very dark presence, it does suck a lot out of you. So, kudos. I tip my hat to anyone who does, that as a regular. And I do, we can all kind of throw some healing toward you and some white light, help you combat that. One of the reasons, just to address your last question, why you're open to that. Sometimes when we disrupt our vibrational field, when we disrupt the you're welcome. I'm sorry we're not more help, honey. Sometimes when we lower that vibrational plane, we can interact with other things. So vibrationally, if we want to vibe high, like we're trying to do here, we want to lift everybody up, get these really good higher vibrations. And you may find when you're meditating and you're bringing in more light to your life that some of your friends that maybe you can't quite get together on the same day. You have a lot of trouble like getting them on the phone. That's because your vibrational level is changing. And now they're not on that same vibrational level as you. They may be vibing lower, they may be vibing higher, who knows? So when we lower that vibrational plane, and that can be through using substances, too frequently, too often, inappropriately. It can be from watching, way too many, believe it or not, crazy movies, like, horror movies, that kind of stuff. If you start to, whatever you're feeding your brain and your energetic self, that's what's going to come out of it. So if you want to eat McDonald's all day long, you're going to get clogged arteries and you're going to be chubby. But if you eat fruits and vegetables all day long, you're going to be a little bit healthier. Now, can you have McDonald's every now and then? Sure. I love a spooky movie. I have no problem watching a spooky movie. I've been obsessed with like OJ Simpson stuff since he passed away the other day. And I was very conscious of it last night. I was like, you know what? I'm going down this crazy rabbit hole. I got to back out and I got to watch Lord of the Rings or something and kind of do a palate cleanser. But, we have to be really careful about how much stuff we feed to our energetic soul. So, if you want to listen to death metal, which I do, I'm a fan of death metal. I'm a fan of all music, but if I'm going to listen to death metal for an entire day while I clean my house, I'm going to make sure that I listen to some Nina Simone or Coldplay a little bit later on, just to balance the scales. Whatever your feeling is on Coldplay, I don't know. That Rick, you might not like Coldplay. I like Coldplay. Uh, so let's talk. We're 45 minutes in. Rick, what do now? You're really fortunate because you have a reflexologist in your house, so you can get treatments on demand or to a certain extent. What else do you do for healing and self care? Like, what are some of the applications that you employ on the reg? And I know you and I are not good about doing self care on the reg. We're not good about, kind of, and I want to address the painkiller thing. I do take, acetaminophen and Advil and whatever else. I do take those things, but I have to be very careful because if I take a pain blocker, I'll work through it and I'll injure myself more. So I'm very aware of how I approach that. So what are some of the things that you do to rest and replenish and kind of fix things back up?
Well, it's strange that I've been consistent over the years of just being on the go with everything, and it's always been on the fly. And a couple of things have changed my way of thinking. So I was on quite heavy anti-anxiety and antidepressants for quite a number of years. Key to this now, and I'm looking back at, I keep saying to people now that I might appear very wise and calm at the moment, but I have learned everything that I've learned in retrospect. There's no part of me sitting here and going, I'm preaching to you like some sort of awakened guru, because I have done all of the stupid things, like trying to drown out my personality by drinking too much so that you could get away from these destructive thoughts. I've gone down the route of having anti-anxiety and medication and things like that. Key to my recovery, or key to my acceptance, was my wife said to me one day, I said, I'm going down that hole again. I'm feeling really off it. I think I need to go back on the medication. And like she always does, and has a habit of doing over the years, she said, so, right, when you go back and you get prescribed with all of that lot, I don't want to hear the usual story where you turn around, you go up there for 3 months, you take the medication, you feel better, so you come off it again. And then you'll have a 6-month spell where you're fairly level and you will then go back onto them again. So what are you going up there for? And I thought, I ain't got an answer to that. Because even that, when you've had the medication and all of that sort of thing, I've done all of the counselling and all of the stuff that I'm supposed to do, I've still ended up with whatever's triggered me in the first place. So now I call it having a meeting with my inner being. Some people will call it meditation. Some people will call it sitting in the power. If there is a problem, right? I will look around. Is that problem for me to deal with personally on my own? Majority of the time in my house, no, it isn't. It will involve something that's going on around the family or anything like that. So I will need other people's help. This is about not being too stubborn or I don't want to say unaware, but where you're just going, it's my problem, I need to take care of it, right? But your family, your loved ones are all part of your energetic feed in your circle as well. So much like you were saying to that previous lady, what you're feeding your energy circle is what you tend to get in return. It's like you're cooking up a storm. You're going to have to eat what you've cooked up. So I look at, right, problem solving. I look at, is there any circumstances going on around me that is causing me to think in that way? Sometimes it's just a case of just hitting that stop point, hitting that pause moment where you have a look around and just go, God, I've been through a lot. I've dealt with this. I've dealt with that. I'm doing all right. So I speak to a lot of people of what I call dustbin meditation. So this is my thing. So my reasoning for not doing traditional meditation, and this is the storyline I've told myself, is because I've had PTSD diagnosed after a riot in the prison service. I feel it very uncomfortable to go and sit in a darkened room and then trust that I'm okay in there. It just makes me feel, I call it ooky. It makes me feel ooky and uncomfortable.
Yeah. A lot of people feel that way. For me with meditation, I think about all the things that I should be doing otherwise. So, I'm sorry, continue.
But the benefits of meditation, or whatever you want to call it, are far outweigh any of the negatives. So there's a command I've issued to myself. So the word meditation for me conjures up an image where you're sat there cross-legged and omming, right? And I'm going, no, it's not me. So somebody said to me, why don't you think about it as sitting in your own personal power? So I went, right, I can get round that. Now, what about the traditional thinking thing? So I went to a demonstration with a hypnotherapist and a meditation expert in inverted commas. And he sat there and he did a little comedy sketch, which just stuck with me for ages. He says, who likes meditation? And because we're in a spiritual setting, loads of hands go up.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he went, not a fan then. I went, well, I never seem to get it right, which is just now I realise what a daft statement that was. But I never seem to get it right. He said, so is this you? So he gets his little chair in the middle of the stage and he sits there and he goes, right, meditation, right, concentrate, meditation, right, I'm ready, I'm in the right place. So he crosses his arms. Has that happened yet? Oh, sorry, yeah, meditation, back in the room again. Oh, God, the car warning light came on the other day. I need to get that serviced. And then he went through this series of things, and I thought he's been spying on me. So he said, right, meditation is not a one-size-fits-all thing. So you get your head round whatever you want to call it. Essentially, what we're looking at doing is changing the state of behavior, changing the energy frequency around you. I thought, I have got a problem where, number one, I can't shut my gob long enough. And number two, my thoughts are that erratic. So when I was given the first instruction about doing meditation, this was where I had a real big issue with it. Go in and switch your mind off. Right. So if you imagine at that point, when I started my spiritual journey, I was 42. Don't you think that if in those intervening 42 years, if I could have found a way of switching my mind off, then I would have found it long before then, before somebody threw this at me. So I need to devise a strategy that suits me. So what I tend to do now is I commit 15 minutes, because even I can shut up for that long. I broke my world record last night in that meeting, but for 15 minutes, I can keep quiet. And with that, I'm not putting any expectancy out in the spiritual world to instantly solve all my problems. And also, I'm not dismissing who I am either. So I'm turning up to this meeting in this meditational state, which is a changed state of mindset, behavior, or energy, whatever you want to know it as. And I'm sat there and I'm an open vessel. So I sit there And I acknowledge that I'm also a human being that's living a human existence that can at times be very, very difficult. So I've got a problem and I need to find a way of solving that problem. So I imagine a dustbin, right? And the dustbin is on the threshold of the room that I'm about to walk into to my appointment. So for instance, imagine that you was a musician and you'd got to go and go to a doctor's appointment. You wouldn't walk in as a magician playing your guitar. You'd leave it outside out of courtesy. So that goes in my little dustbin. All of the things that I've got to take care of, all of my life's things that my responsibilities, they're going in there for 15 minutes for safekeeping. I then go and sit in my space. Now I like my things around me. I like crystals. I like all of my little bits around me. Right, so I feel comfortable. So I'm in a fairly relaxed state when I walk in that room. The only pressure I'm going to get is if I start, oh, you've got to switch your mind off for this to be effective, and you've got to have a result. No, I go in there with the volume turned down on my gob as much as I can. So I sit in my chair and I start to work through whatever energy is going around me. Now, your thoughts are going to be part of your process. But this is the key to dustbin meditation, is not attaching any thought to the thoughts. No reasoning, no judgment. Just let them drift by. They're still there, or recognize that they're still there, but they drift past, because that's not my job at that particular time. So next to me, I'm also imagining another dustbin, and in that dustbin is everything that comes through that I know is not my thoughts. So you could be connecting into past relatives, you could be connecting into your guides, you could just be connecting into that healing vibration that you've agreed to bring into your psyche. All of that information goes into the second dustbin, because we're going to look at that, but we're going to look about it later, because all we're in there for in that particular moment, self-healing, settling the energies down, bringing raising your vibration, sometimes just topping up. Mm-hmm. What you do then is have that for your 15 minutes, because you've turned up for your appointment. Spirit, the universe, God, whatever it is you know it as, has turned up for their 15 minutes part. At the end of it, say thank you. Always be in a place of gratitude with it, because you need to be in gratitude to yourself for actually making time to do this, and also in gratitude to the spirit world for turning up and matching your vibrations. Saying thank you, closing it down however you want. Me personally, I just ask for healing energies to go out to all those that need it, and any energy that I use, please have it top back up for me so that I can go about my daily life. And I always say amen at the end of it, just to close it. I'm not religious, but that's my thing, and I close it down. I leave the good energy in that room there, because I don't want to immediately start looking into it and analyzing it and thinking it. So I might take time to just diary it down, but without analysis. And then as I come out on the room, then I'm back to normal. I pick the other dustbin up and I'm back with that. A couple of days later, or a few hours later, depending on what you feel capable of, is go back and revisit what you've learned during that 15 minutes. And there's a lot of answers. So the key to all of that is being in between the thoughts, because that's where the information is. And checking in on yourself regularly is another big thing. And I was saying to people, I'm under pressure to do this. I've got all of these tasks to do, and I'm going like that. Yeah. And what if you didn't do them? Oh, I never thought about it like that. So one particular, and we were speaking about this off camera, the mother that was in there that wants to nurture and guide and do everything. She said, my daughter can't do this unless I babysit. I went, and what happens the day that you're poorly? What happens the day that you've hurt yourself and you can't get out? What happens if your car's off the road? Oh, she'd have to find somebody else. I went, but it's not mind-breakingly complicated, but it's where we get bogged down in this always doing all of the time that we forget about this self-care and welfare. And I keep talking to people and saying, reminder, and I know that I'm preaching from a place where I'm going to get stones thrown at me, but self-care is not a luxury. It's not an item where we're going out there and, you know, you're buying your big cars, you're buying your handbag. It is a necessity. It is like breathing. It is that level of importance to you. But how many of us can truthfully sit here and say we put ourselves first? That's where that saying about pouring from an empty cup come from, because I would say the vast majority of the people that I've met do just that. Because if you're a caring, compassionate person, you don't want anybody else to suffer. You don't want them to go through any unhappiness or anything like that. Because I'm not an ist or an ism, so I'm not a spiritualist. I'm not into spiritualism. I'm a spiritual person, and at the core of my being is I want people to be okay. I want them to live the best possible life that they can, but they've got to want it as well. So for me, I'm a thought thinker too much. I'm a mechanical thought stripper that when people say certain things, I'll analyze it. But when it goes into the system, so if you imagine your energy chakras that are spinning all of the time, if you put in good energy, then they spin and you get vibrancy and upliftment. But if you're around people that bring in negativity and darkness, you'll still function, because at the end of the day, you're that spiritual person, but you've also taken on board some of the negative aspects. So you might find out that all of a sudden you can't communicate with people, or you're feeling a little bit sick or nervous around people. So it's recognizing when you've got energy around you, and I'm not talking about beings and entities. I want to make that clear as well. I'm talking about energy itself as a source unit, that you might be carrying stuff around that's not yours. So it is essential every now and again to just check in with yourself and see what might be influencing your mind state, what might be pushing you to be feeling like this. And the question there about being what it is with you being open, right? Well, that was maybe your lesson at that particular point, but you've come here now synchronistically to answer that question. You've been given advice as much as you can from Annabelle, and I've certainly got nothing to add to that. But this is part of your learning journey, and the reason that you might have been open to that is because of that set of circumstances at that time. But it's now giving you information that you can now move on with it, how you maybe want to handle it, but starting to notice who you are as a person. So it might simply have been a warning that you're too open. And I'm very much generalizing here, but you might have been too open, too loving, too caring, that while you was doing everything that you could to save the world and look after other people, that something else slipped into the driver's seat and took over. So I'm always mindful now when something's sort of coming in energetically or circumstances, that I'm always on guard with it. I'm always checking. But that might be the PTSD, I don't know. But yeah, so looking after yourself, and personal pride's a big thing. What you tell yourself is what you often become. So I am not saying I get it right. If I was looking at a gauge or a level, I would say I'm probably quite bad at it, really. But the thing is, I'm also open to change. Every now and again, all of us, no matter how brilliant we might seem to other people, have to take one on the chin. You know, you take that sucker punch, because you know when some people come at you, that they're saying it for the best reason. It's coming at you with love. It's coming at you with healing. It's learning to distinguish between that and the people that want to pull you down or put you down for whatever reason. So constantly aware of what is going on around me and just checking in. So that's my sort of self-healing. But I'm very, very lucky and very, very fortunate that I've got a wife that supports me. So I'm always looking at the ingredients that are going into the system, and hopefully that when I'm straying off path, I get pulled back quite fairly quickly.
Yeah, I dropped a couple of links in there for Dick Sutphin. It's through Amazon. Their meditations for balancing the chakras. And even though I love Dr. Joe Dispenza and he does balancing of the energy centers, Dick Sutphin is very descriptive in how he has you swirling the different colors, and he goes through all the color system of your chakras. So I put 2 links in there. They are Amazon affiliate links, so I will get a fee or commission at no additional cost to anyone if they do purchase those Audible links through there. But really, it's a really great meditation. I think they run about a half hour long, so it's a half hour well spent. But once you start doing that, you can do like a little mini meditation in the morning and just kind of run through all your chakras and kind of balance everything out. When we finish this up, I will be doing my chakra balancing because I think that's going to be part of my new self-care process every Monday. Hopefully I could do it every day, but before Greg and I got married and moved in together, my self care was pretty intense. I would get up at like 4:30 in the morning. I would run. I would do my training. I'd get myself ready for school or for work. I would get the kids ready for school. So my kids, they always saw me dressed, pumped, ready to go, hitting the ground running. By the time I woke them up, I was already put together. They never really saw me kind of sloppy. Now, Greg, his self care love language is sleep. He loves to sleep. I was never a good sleeper. I was always jealous. My sisters could sleep until like 3 o'clock in the afternoon when we were teenagers. And I would be up at like dawn, like, okay, like I'm awake and what do I do? And so I got into the habit of like either working out or going surfing or I would surf really early in the mornings, which is fun because sharks like to feed early in the morning too. But yeah, so I was always doing something in the morning, and even now, like if I could be out till 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm still awake at 6:30. It's like sleeping in. But as a teenager, I couldn't get past that 10 o'clock mark. Like 10 a.m., I was like, "Oh, I gotta get out of bed. Like I can't sit here and fake it anymore." But I seem to always like engage, like my partners have all been sleepers. So I think there's something to that. Like I should be sleeping more. But I love going to bed at 8 o'clock at night. Like I think that's great. That's one of my self-care things is I always have pretty pajamas. Like I already decided I'm gonna always do Vibe with the Tribe in pretty pajamas. I'll get myself put together and do a little face, do a little hair. But one of my really really important self care rituals is Sunday. Sunday night, I take a shower. I do a full body exfoliation. I do all of my facial stuff to the nth power. So it'll be like a 2.5 hour like showering and getting ready for bed kind of thing. Fresh sheets every Sunday. They have to be fresh. Raven does sleep in the bed with us, so it is ideal for us to have fresh sheets. But that I like to start out the week. I like to wash all that off. Showering for me after I do readings, after I do any energetic work with people is really important. I'm a Cancer. Water it really does pull the energy off of me quite nicely. That is really important. And as energetic, energy workers, Rick and I, it's really important for us to make sure that we do have kind of that replenish and that reset. One of the things that Greg and I got into recently in the last year or so, we have a spammer. Yeah, I saw her, the one on Facebook. We'll deal with it later. Yeah, that one keeps showing up. But one of the things that Greg and I got into, and this is an homage to his Asian background, cupping. We bought a cupping kit, and we got a book, and it's really cool. Like, it really, we're both because of the nature of his work. He is sitting a lot and doing a lot with his arms on a regular in a confined space. Everyone's curious what he does. One day I will let you guys know what he does for a living, but he gets some lower back pain. I told Rick before. I don't know if I said it before or after we started. Greg grew it was like 9 or 10 inches in 6 months or a year when he was younger. So he's got some crazy lower back and mid back issues from growing so quickly when he was a kid. Um, The cupping, anytime he has like a little knot or something, we stick that on there, put a couple on there. And I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. You know, we got the book and we're just kind of learning about it. But it really, and you do have marks after it. There's two minds. Like some people say that you're not supposed to have marks, and some people say that you are supposed to have marks. So I don't know. We kind of go in the middle and we just don't pump it up too much. But you know, if anyone who doesn't know what cupping is, Grumpy Sapper said the packaging is weird over by so we'll have to see this. All right, send it on the Discord or something, so we'll all have a laugh. But you know what it does is it pulls the energy out. Structurally, it pulls the blood. So with their cups, you put it on your skin. You do this little vacuum thing with a tool that they have, and then it sucks the skin up into it, and it pulls the energy out of it. It's really wild. And I was like, oh, that can't work. Former manager of mine was Vietnamese, and he did it anytime he was sick. His parents would cup him, and he said it really does work. He was like, try it. So you know, he definitely encouraged us to do it, and it's very cool. It is a very cool thing. So that, you know, those things I do for self-care. You know, of course, meditating, you know, I try and meditate as possible, as often as possible. And the tea.
Yeah. Self-care.
So one of the things that Grumpy said was that he has, it pulls out the toxins. Yeah, thank you. He also said that when he's doing things, Grumpy Sapper said that when he's doing things, he does, like, he gets into a really good headspace. I meditate the same kind of way. The best meditating I do is when I'm doing dishes. Not that I want to do dishes all the time, but you know, Dr. Joe Dispenza has a walking meditation, and I purchased it, but I have not done it yet. So I'm going to do it on the treadmill, so I'm not like wandering around in a field someplace walking. But you never know. You never know what would happen. So you know, they're different. He actually has standing, sitting, lying down, and walking meditations available on his website, drjoedispenza.com. You know, and Rick, you are a hypnotherapist, aren't you?
Well, yes, is the direct answer to that. When I did my training, I'm an analytical hypnotherapist, which is what I tend to work with when I'm working with anybody, is the power of the words, the power of the energy. I don't do hypnotherapy sessions because that's not what I set out to do. We speak a lot about toolboxes, and I spoke to the guy who trained me, who was trained by a very eminent hypnotherapist himself. And I said to him, I hope I don't disappoint you. I says, because I'm going to enter into the spirit of doing whatever you teach me, and I'm open to all of that. But essentially, at the end of the day, I don't want to be where I'm working, you know, with weight loss and all of that. They're important. I'm a spiritual person. I want to work with the person's inner being, their psyche, their soul, and things like that. And the first time I actually did hypnotherapy on somebody, I did it by accident. I put somebody under by accident. Yeah, I didn't mean to. So I'd love to sit here and say, oh, I'm an exponent. Right. So I'm at a fair. I'm doing an event, and a lady came and sat with me, and I started tipping, which is a sign for me that energetically I'm not grounded. I'm not in the right space. And I agree with Grumpy, to do that sort of energy work, you need to be in that right space to be able to do it, non-thinking usually. So I went through my usual sort of thing of how are you, whereabouts are you with things, is there anything that you'd like to work on or anything like that. And she just went, my whole life's a mess. And I said, all of your life? So you work through it and gradually start to break it down into manageable bite-sized pieces. And I said, well, I picked up on this and picked up on that. And she sat there and she's nodding, she's doing the thing. Anyway, I'm talking, and this is where you start to realize the power of words. So I said to her, right, I just feel that there's this, and I feel that there's somebody coming in to connect with you, and this, that, and the other. And I just want you to close your eyes for a moment and just imagine that you're sat there on a bench with this person talking to them. Can you feel their presence? Like this. By this point, the voice had gone and drifted off. So we've got a journey to do, and I take them on this journey into a place in their inner being where they've kind of got some sort of fear or phobia or something locked away. And it was just going to be one of these real quick things. So the secret of hypnotherapy is the voice intonation. So you drop the voice down and you get people to relax. So they're just focusing on the sound of your voice. And I got her down into this place and got her to do the work. And then I went, oh, and I looked at her eyes, and the eyes are a big giveaway. She was gone. She was like that. And I'm going, shit. I can't remember which bit now, that because I'd not intentionally took her on a hypnotic journey. What I was describing was how she could do it for herself, because all hypnosis is self-hypnosis, but I put her under unknowingly. So for about the last 5 minutes of her reading, I'm trying to get her back, because wherever I got her to, she didn't want to come back from. So gradually, because one of the worst things that you can do is make somebody jump, because if they're in a trauma state, it's going to agitate that trauma state, and then you've got more work to do to bring them out of that. And gradually brought her back in there, and I thought I must make notice with my teacher there to ask him how you actually lift people out, so that I don't do that again. But it's great about energy working, that you can put yourself in that state of hypnosis. Because a lot of the work that when you're doing hypnotherapy that I found is showing people that you're not going to turn them into a chicken or have them dancing up down the highway or anything like that. That it is purely just being in that state where you're just lowering your frequency a little bit, so that it pops open the subconscious mind. Because what you need to bypass is the conscious thinking mind to get into the recording center of the subconscious. And so you kind of like running a distraction technique with them to get past all of the blah, 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 right, and get in there and go, right, what have you got recorded? So we'll pull the recorder out and have a look what's being recorded, and then look at making changes. And you can do that yourself, but you need to come out of that blah, 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 blah state I've got to be doing all of the time. And if you can just slow your energies down a little bit, and sitting there in meditation is the ideal space, sitting in your power, whatever it is you call it, just checking in on your own thing, and notice how you're breathing. Sometimes the best thing that you can do for that self-care is just notice how you're breathing. And it was pointed out to me, I'm an exponent of checking in on people and how they're doing it. And my wife says to me, do you know, you don't breathe properly. And I thought, well, that's a bit of a strange statement, because if I didn't breathe properly, I'd probably be dead. But she went, no. She says, so we did an exercise called mirroring and matching. So when you're working with a client's energy themselves, so if you see, I'm quite with my hands and I gesture quite a lot. But if I got somebody that was sat with me that they might see that as quite intimidating, I'm going to look for what their body is showing me. So they might be sat there and they'll have their hands sort of clasped. So I'll have my hands clasped. I will listen in how they talk and whether they're seeing, hearing, sensing, anything like that. And I will match the vocabulary. So the breathing, when you get in with somebody for any length of time, if you're a quite calm person and you get somebody comes in that's like that, right, just breathe. And it's a simple process that we sometimes forget to do. So breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth regulates the breathing, which I get the concept of that. Now she says, look at what you're doing, because I am trying to match your frequency and I can't do it, because she wasn't like mine was short breath. So I was breathing from in through the nose, and then I'm short down to here, which is around the heart chakra, and then out again. So I'm actually bypassing some of the other energy chakras because I'm not breathing all the way through. So it's important that when you're in that state of stress or you're in that fight or flight, that you take a real deep breath in through the nose, take it right down into the belly, fill your belly up with that energy, And you'll be able to tell me this a lot better because you're a lady. And then breathe out like you're breathing that. And then it gets the full amount of your breathing. So it slows and it regulates the heartbeat. It slows the energy down around you. Then you're in that space where you're not thinking, you're not analyzing, you're in that state of being. So it's just slowing things down so that then you can bypass that conscious blah, 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 blah mind and get into this, and then you can do your work. So it's important to breathe. And I gave this as a card in a tarot reading the other day, and this woman just looked at me and went, "What is that all about?" I went, "Well, do you breathe properly?" She said, "Well, of course I do, or I won't be here." So I explained the process, and she went, "No, I don't." She said, and I could actually watch where she was breathing. So she was breathing just into her solar plexus and then coming out of it. So I said to her, because if you think about the energy centers are good indicators of what is going on around your solar plexus, around your sacral chakra, which is located around the navel, and that is all about your intuition. It's your feeling second brain. What is it that you've got to process and get rid of? And she went, "Oh my God, that is so upside down." I said, "So you're avoiding it." So if you imagine your breathing cycle, that when it's going correctly and you're breathing all the way through that cycle, that it's like a bike chain. It'll keep rolling like that. While you're giving it the right fuel, it'll go there. So from what I call the funnel, which is actually the crown, right down to around the groin area, because they're the energy centers I tend to concentrate on. There are more, but I've not needed to go in that depth with them. But if you think, when it's running like that, you've settled. It's like a bike. You're going to make momentum because you're going to go forwards. If it starts to go backwards, you've got an issue. But if you're going forwards and you're feeding it the right stuff, we're in that right place. So we keep breathing all the way through it. What if you start to notice your own breathing patterns, where say a phone call comes in and interrupts your thought process, right? I get the phone call. Something's happened out there that's now knocked me off course. Right. So as I'm still trying to breathe and get my breath, it's affected me emotionally. So as I start to breathe, I'm still breathing, remembering that I need to breathe all the way through the cycle. But as it gets to my heart, because it's hit me emotionally, I feel like a disturbance. Right, and then it goes on again.
Mm-hmm.
What's happened there? Oh, God, that means I've got to cancel that appointment and go racing out there. Oh, I might let them down. So as I get to my place of intuition, where I know I need to be going to this person because I need to sort this out, I got again, right. What is the feedback? What is coming in? What has affected that breathing pattern? Because we've identified it's already simple. So we keep going through it and going through it. Now, what is making it judder? Most people that I deal with where they have an issue is in the throat. So very early on in the cycle, they're going through that and they'll go like this. And you go, "Are you in a state of fear?" "No." "Are you angry?" And then they'll do this, body language. "No, I'm all right." And instantly.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing.
You'll know instantly where that's the problem. You see, this is the thing where what distinguishes genuine energy workers from people who do things to just boost their ego. Because if you watch somebody and tell them that you're reading their body language, I always do it and tell them why. So I'll sit there and have you said anything about this? Yeah. You're looking at the body language, the words are saying yes, and the body and the energy is saying no. So you can actually diagnose people in that sense by just going, right, so what is the answer to that problem? And linking it in with, simplify it, get it down to its smallest possible component and go, so what would you like to do instead of? So we talked about on the last one about changing wording around things. Can I? Should I? Will I? Well, change it round. I will. I can. I should. Because they're all commands in that way. So me, and I have to constantly remind myself of this, I should do more work with my breathing and noticing when I'm getting stressed, because who is responsible for that stress? Well, it's not the outside world, people. It is the way that I am reacting to what is going on around me. So my body is very good at telling me when I'm in a state of stress. Why does this not listen to it? Oh, well, I've got a list of excuses. Right. Okay. So I've got a list of reasons and excuses. But is that going to solve any problems? So this is where my therapy comes in of, and then what? Because it's generated and you've given me a reason why you're not going to do it. But only you can answer whether you're prepared to look after yourself or not. And me, I take time out now and step back because I go, it's so easy when you get into the habit of doing it, but not all of us are ready to just go, do you know what, we'll chuck all of that lot away and begin again. Because what's actually happened is, however old you are up to this point, that is what you've learned. That is how you manage. That is your coping strategies, your coping mechanisms. Until the day where it comes up where you just go, do you know what, that doesn't effing work no more, so I'm going to have to change it. So I sit with people and I just listen to the story, because they'll tell you the story. Everybody's got things in the background, and go, and what you're going to do about it. And until you can realize just how important you are to you, then it goes nowhere. We're going round and round in that circle. So all of the clues are there to solve the mystery. It's just that we're that intent on helping others, lifting others, running around after other people, that we forget the most important component in our lives, and that is us, because we're the vehicle. And if the vehicle hasn't got the correct fuel in it, then we splutter and fart that down the road and we come to a stop. So it's about how you fuel yourself. So while I was joking about the tea, this is what I've realized with me, that if, I ain't got time to drink a bottle of water. No, but if you had a client that came to you and you could see that they've got kidney issues or that had a problem, what's your hydration level like? And so often my guide sat on my shoulder going, and I'm going, yeah, I'm aware of the irony. I'm aware of what I'm saying. But, right, I can keep butting. And the only thing that's any good at butting is a blooming goat. Right. So, anyway. Off
just to make another Coldplay reference, Gwyneth Paltrow, who was married to what's his name, Chris, I can't remember his name,
Chris Martin.
She took a lot of heat a number of years ago because she was talking about parenting, and she said, self-care and taking care of yourself is just like being on a plane. You should put the oxygen mask on yourself before you help everyone out. Everyone gave her so much grief for that. And I have to say this, she actually took that from my mother. My mother said that years ago. My mother said that back in the 80s. Parenting, you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you can take care of everyone else. And I think, again, with all the noise and the static that goes on in the modern world that we live in, me with my 4 emails and 2 kids and a million things that are going on with them, and my husband running around and a dog that injured herself, it's so easy to not take care of ourselves. And even me, I described, I used to have a whole, I'd get up at 4:30 and I would work out and I would get myself ready. It's not the pandemic that changed me into a different process. It was moving in and having too many things to do and trying to adapt to my husband's sleep schedule, which is his healing process. It's not mine. I have to go back to what's mine. So, working out, that is absolutely a great way for me to heal and repair, even though when you're lifting weights, you're doing more damage and it's going to be sore and you're going to heal over the next few days. But, putting myself first, and sometimes that means, fortunately, I'm an early morning person. I can get up early in the morning. I don't care. It doesn't make a difference. I'm awake anyway. So, I can either be scrolling on my phone or doing something beneficial. Self-care, working out, getting some kind of movement in there, some kind of thing. Breathing, Grumpy Sapper put up here that people hyperventilate. I do. I breathe here. This is where I breathe unless I consciously think about it. And I'm a trained singer. I know how to breathe. But when you're running around doing a million things, you forget. So eating well, and I'm not going to say, you have to eat lentils and vegetables all day long, but eating well and eating according to what your body's asking for. When we eat carbs, we crave more carbs. That's science. I'm not a dietitian, but that is science. When you eat carbs, they burn so quickly that your body starts to crave more. So you eat more carbs, so then you just start to carb load like that. And sometimes it doesn't work. I mean, carb loading is a thing. Fitness Hutch and Mel can talk more about that. But it does have its place. When I was training for mud runs and tough mudders, I would eat a lot of pasta. I'd go for a run and I would eat a pound of pasta that day with a bunch of garlic. So um bathing, getting yourself up, doing that energetic cleanse, dry brushing. I love dry brushing, and I don't talk about it enough because not only does it stimulate the body, get some blood flow going, but energetically, you're really brushing a lot off. It really does help. Um, Meditation, of course, we always talk about meditation here. Even though it's, something that it's not everybody's cup of tea, you can find a process of meditation that will serve you well, that will give you that peace in a moment. For some people, it's prayer. Some people at the end of the day, they sit down and they say their prayers. That is a meditation. You're meditating when you do that. Meditating, manifesting, asking for help, whatever, those things do help. So, true laughter is an awesome medication. I absolutely agree with that. And Crystal Pearl says, you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. And here, listen, embracing aging. This is great. Listening while cleaning the bathroom. That is energetic self care. Taking care, getting things down to an energetically clean, a physically clean surface. That is self-care. That absolutely is. And Crystal Pearl, I just want to put this up. She said she keeps telling herself there is no such word as can't, but there's always a way around it. That's true. And she also uses art to help her get through the day. I'm working on a vision board right now. It's a small one, I do small vision boards, but I'm working on a vision board right now. I have to get a few more supplies for it. And I do think that that is a way to dump all your intention and energy into something through art, through some kind of craft. I do it with food craft, again, food's my love language for my people. So I can infuse food and beverages and things like that with intention and try and uplift them. So Rick, and we talked about cupping, we talked about massage. You can have somebody else massage you, have them kind of pull some of that energy out of you. What else can we do, Rick, for healing? I wanted to say healing is a process. So you can't just say, hey, I have a sore back, I have a sore head, I have, I have floaters in my eyes, whatever, and say, oh, I'm going to heal myself today. It's always a process. It's always going to take a little bit of time. There's a woman, she's got a website called flylady.net, and it's house cleaning. It's how to manage your house and how to declutter your house and take control over things that have gotten a little crazy. And one of the most valuable things that she says is, if your house is cluttered, if your house is messy, don't think that you're going to clean it in a day. It didn't get that way in a day. You're not going to clean it in a day. And I think that that's really important with us too. We carry all of the stuff that happened to us from the time we were born. We carry that with us. You do have to process through it. If you have family members, you're going to be carrying some of their stuff. This morning, my son missed the bus on Friday. And so I said to him, what do we have to do? Do I have to wake you up every day? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay. So he's got 3 alarms and he's got mommy. So, we take on other people's stuff as well. And sometimes you need to just push that pause button and kind of do, an energetic clean. One of my friends, he's my tattoo artist, and he went through some substance issues and did some time in the prison system, it had a kind of a rough go of it. He's been on track for like the last 22 years, I guess. He's been doing much better. But at one point during his recovery, he said to me, he goes, I just need a soul brush. And he, like, I get it. He wanted to just kind of take a soul out and scrub it down and kind of renew it. And we can do that. The soul brush. What is the soul brush? The soul brush is meditation. Maybe, and sometimes it's an actual brush. Maybe it's actually a dry brush. Maybe it's a little hand broom that we're just kind of sweeping up the crumbs and getting rid of them. But we can do that through focused energy and intention. I think that that's really the best takeaway from this. And you have to find your healing language for yourself and your self-care language for yourself. But what else? Anything else we want to add, Rick, before we send everybody off for a great day?
I'm just listening to it, and words have got such great power. Two things I just want to finish on. One is realizing that healing is not curing. And this is to just tap into what you were saying there. When we're healing, we're going forward. We're still us. We're still likely to make mistakes. So I always think, and this card came out in one, I don't tend to read cards for myself, but I was shuffling the deck before I started, and one just dropped on the floor. So I said to Spirit, as I tend to do when I start out, is that for me? And I looked at it, and it was a single word on it. I might get my lips right around that in a minute. A single word. Now, tried it twice. It's not going to happen. One word. And it was on there, and it was talking about compassion. And so I picked the book up, which I very rarely do, because this is probably where you as a tarot teacher will go, right? But I picked it up, and I looked at the literal definition that it put in there, and it put on there a forgiving and compassionate review of the past. And I thought, yeah, it's a bit wishy-washy for me. And then I started to sit with that energy of the words, and I thought, you know what? Yes, because it's not towards the people that have presented the circumstances. It's not to the circumstances themselves. It's not to the loss. It's like when I sat there, I've wasted time. I should have got it quicker. I should have done that better. I should have helped them. I shouldn't have spent so much time around all of that sort of thing. Right. But I did it. And sometimes it's just the acceptance, and that you wouldn't treat somebody else like that and put them under pressure to say, right, you wasted time. You should have done that quicker. You should have learned. You just wouldn't do it. If you've got 1% humanity in it, you would not put that pressure on somebody else. Yet we find it okay to do it to ourselves and hold ourselves to this exemplary standards. And yet we also accept that we get things wrong. So one last thing that I wanted to just bring up before I go, and this is just where I'm paying tribute to one of my mentors that got me on the road with all of this sort of thing. She's a big advocate of what's called pink blankets. So whatever's going on around you when you're angry or frustrated or anything like that, she surrounds them with a pink blanket. Now, it can be a blanket of love. She says it can be a blanket where you wrap it around the neck and throttle them. She said, but that's your personal choice. But she sends everybody pink blankets. So she started to talk about how she visualizes energetic build-up in the head. So it's all right us giving you this upliftment and things like this and telling you to do or advising you, guiding you to do these sort of things. But there are circumstances out there in our very real world where we've got people around us that are family, that are loved ones, that present a problem, and we can't just make them go away. You can cut the energetic cord to them in the sense of that you're not going to react to everything. But if that is what you know in your 24-hour day, is that person's got a flat energy, a difficult energy, whatever you want to describe it as, you're going to have effects of that. Because like you were saying earlier, Anna, it does tend to rub off on you. And it's like sometimes we just need to remember to brush it off. But she speaks about having cells in your head, as in sort of prison cells or doors, however you want to remember it. Behind there is a load of cushions, right? And we cram in, we cram in, and we cram in, and then we push the door shut because we're making it all right. We're okay with it. It's fine. Pink's a lovely, loving colour for me. That's why I've got my pink shirt on today. And you cram it in, and you cram it in, and you cram it in. And then just one day, there's just something that just flicks that switch, and they all come spilling out. And it's like, you know, the monkeys are running the circus. It's all over the place, and you're trying to get it all back in. So what she always talks about doing, and she does this in church services, and it never fails to make me smile, is she says, right, so there'll be a trigger. There'll be somebody that set you off, that's upset you, dropped you in the isht, as you like to call it, done whatever it is that you've done, and you've just hit boiling point and you want to go off, but you can't because of that person or the this reason or whatever. It's your boss, and you can't do silly things like that because we all need to eat. So she advocates picking up this cushion, one of the spare ones that's popped out, holding it there in your hand, and then putting in your mind's eye the face of that person that has caused you all that isht, all of that angst, all of that upset. Imagine they're on that pink cushion there. Hold it up to the light. Place it down on a safe surface next to you, and then give it some therapeutic counselling. And what that does, if you think about it, it's a mind distraction #1 tool, because it's distracting your mind from that current state of "Argh!" And the other thing is, it's breaking up that state of the energy as well, because you're doing and thinking something. So Grumpy Sapper put on there about laughter is a great medicine. So there, if you've distracted yourself from that anxious, sort of frustrated, whatever, you've given it some therapeutic counselling, because literally you might want to do that to somebody. I've had it frequently. And then you put it back in, but you give it a room of its own, because that energy is now clean. Send them a pink blanket out. Hope the rest of their day's a little bit better than whatever it is that they've thrown in your little pond, and just wish them well until the next time. So it's one of those. It's just about knowing the signs around you that you're being triggered by something, realizing that nobody can make you feel in any way whatsoever. It's the way that you're responding to the stimulus going on around you. No good decisions are ever made on a poor night's sleep. No amount of anxiety or worrying will buy you even a step forward. And that as long as we get upright and breathing every morning, we've got the chance to make changes to the day and the things that we didn't achieve. So my last words, as I always do when I'm talking to you on here, is keep smiling and don't sweat the small stuff.
And I think that is great self-care every single day. Don't sweat the small stuff. If you get stuck in traffic, use that opportunity to listen to a book on tape. You know, that's if you miss the flight, you'll get another one. Don't worry about it. You know, it's the things that are important are the people around us, and raising the vibration so that we can all live really well. So as always, I love our Monday morning kickoff. This really is great for me. I you know, and I hope that we are helping other people lift off their week really well. And so next week, what are we up to next week? Let me take a look. So next week,
it's week 6, isn't it? Are we on week 6 next week?
we are on week 6, and it's embracing forgiveness. So that's going to be an interesting one. Yeah.
That'll be emotional.
That'll be emotional.
Oh, that'll be emotional for me personally.
Yeah, well, for me too, you know, there's a lot. Oh, Grumpy's not seeing the messages. What? Really? Huh. Grumpy, I'm gonna give him a wrench, because let me get on here. He needs a wrench. And just bear with me, people, while we do this. I have to do it while we're live, I believe. So I'm where is he? Here we go. Grumpy is getting a wrench. There you go. Grumpy, go ahead. Put up another comment. He
He's
only
going.
sees his. That's weird.
Well, he's coming. He's coming through as everybody else is, and I'm on StreamYard, and I'm streaming direct to YouTube and my Facebook page. So I'm getting all of the messages through. I don't know about YouTube because I'm not looking at it at the minute.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. But Grumpy, you got a wrench now. Yay.
Hey, well done,
So
Pete.
if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah, yeah, right up my alley. That.
Me too. Oh, look at that. He's got a wrench. Look at that wrench. Looks great.
Yay!
Looks great on you. All right. Well, everybody have a great week. Oh, wait. We have an announcement.
Oh, yes.
So the Psychic News Universe is going to be going weekly, not this week, but next week. We had a think tank meeting, and we are going to present the news weekly every Thursday, 1 o'clock New York time. That's 6 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time. It's going to be great fun. We're going to formalize it. We're going to tinker with the name a little bit, and we're also going to create a channel for it. So that's going to be under construction this week, and we will keep you guys abreast of what's going on in our community pages. So exciting things are happening with that. We're getting a bit more outreach with my bursitis shoulders, so a bit more outreach. Life is good. So we have to make Grumpy a mod over there too when we set up the channel. So should be really cool. We're gonna try and bring you guys not just the weekly news like once a week, but we're gonna, we're talking about little mini programs that'll be on that channel, with portions of our news team, our psychic news team. Oh, I love that. But we're gonna have some good fun with it. So you guys know Tarot Destiny, who's in the chats here. She's another Grumpy says I'll behave.
Don't
We put him
promise
in
I
jail.
will.
So Tarot Destiny and of course Thor Sandalwood, our Vedic astrologer. My buddy Rob Akampora, who has a channel, the A Game with Rob Akampora, and Florida Tarot Apprentice, who's our good friend Debbie. So we're gonna have some great fun with that. We're gonna, plant some seeds this spring and let them bloom for the rest of the year. So it's gonna be really cool stuff. All right. So Rick, with that, any last words? You already said your last word?
Yeah, it's unusual for me, but no, I haven't got any. So just thanks very much for tuning in. Really appreciate everybody's time, and as usual, honor to you. And I'll speak to you after we go off air.
And
So,
to you,
thanks,
my
guys.
friend. Everybody go vibe high for the week. We will see you next Monday. All right. Talk to you soon.